You are connecting to CampusLink. My name is Rodrigo.
My name is Lupo. We showcase the best of Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam.
We are VUCampus Radio.
Connecting the campus. How are you doing? How's life?
Life is good. Life is very good.
Awesome, man. Good to hear. Good to hear. What you been up to lately?
Lately, it's been quite a creative process in figuring out exactly what it is that I'm doing and how I communicate that to other people and exactly how I get the message across that I want to get across. So
Maybe we can do a little bit of background because I realize I understand what you are talking about, but maybe the audience doesn't. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
let's see about myself, right?
Yes, sir.
According to the society, I was born in 2002, July 12th. Can't verify it, but that's what they say. And I was born in Anaheim, California, to two Mexican parents who immigrated from Mexico so that I could be born here. Immediately after, they took me back to Mexico for about 3 years. We spent some time there, and when my sister was ready to be born, we came back to the U.S., and we stayed here ever since.
Gotcha. How old were you when you guys went back and then
I was about
traveled?
3.
3. So you were quite young. So you basically grew up in the US.
I'm born and raised in
California.
California.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
I think everyone has like this romantic ideal about California. What's it like out there?
It's definitely beautiful. It has practically every kind of climate that you could expect to find. You have desert, forest, mountain ranges. You have snow. You have hot. You have the beach. You have palm trees. It is beautiful.
You get
And
everything.
yeah, in terms of a geographic location, I think it's blessed to be what it is. There's also a lot of produce that's grown here. There's a lot of industry as well. And I think the biggest benefit of California is the density of the population in terms of the kinds of people you can find and interact with. But that's also one of the problems.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. But I feel like that's valuable at one point. Like, for example, I'm living in Amsterdam right now and I see the same. There's so many kinds of people and I think it's good to get to know all kinds of people, cultures through them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're exposed to all kinds of perspectives that you wouldn't find if you were living in a place where there's only, for example, I come from quite a small town, like 70K people from Hungary, and it's basically only Hungarians there. So you are not exposed to certain perspectives. You are just inside your bubble. And I feel that in the US particularly, but now also across the EU in bigger cities, there's such a wide variety of people that you are more like, I feel like you're more creative because of that, because you're exposed to all these thoughts and all these other cultures, as I said. What do you think about that?
I don't know if there's a specific way to measure creativity, but I do know that the greater access to a variety of information that you have will enable you to create things in a more novel, seemingly novel way than
Sure.
if you just were exposed to one culture, one idea. And yeah, there's a variety of people here. There's all colors, all races, all backgrounds, all ethnicities. I wouldn't say that they always have different. So I think that the main function of America is that it basically takes every culture, combines them, and starts to dilute them. Within a few generations, people don't speak their home language anymore. And so a lot of that gets lost.
Yeah, that's quite sad also.
Yeah. It's like to be colonized by English.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think you're self-colonizing yourself then. because you actively choose not to like keep up with the tradition of your culture, even with the language, so to speak. I think it's everyone's decision. And going back to the creative aspect, because I think that will be a core topic for our discussion today, since you're both in this field of creating things. You said that the way you are like exposed to other information, it will help you to come up with your own ideas a little bit better because you are seeing more colors of the prism. And I think that we have our phones and it enables everyone to basically access any form of information all over the globe. So people can choose, even if, like, for example, in the small town, I was 17, I was listening to Joe Rogan, this guy from California. At that time he was there. And I was exposed to his thoughts and his views on certain things, not just my own little bubble, but I think we can all actively seek out the information that we want because it's available for us on the internet.
Yeah. I think, did I turn off my video?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's all right.
My mistake. I'm trying to hide my face so I don't look at myself. Let's see.
I think you can choose the view in Zoom. Like you
You
can
can
choose to
see me,
only
right?
look at me.
You can still see me, right?
I can, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. That's good. All right.
Perfect.
So, yes, essentially, I think what you said is very spot on, that you can access any kind of information. And this is in my quote, but Naval said that we're information rich but time poor. And I think the fact that there's always so much content being produced, so much information being put out, is part of the reason that most of it is not of substance. It doesn't have any tangible, leverageable effect on your life if you're not seeking out like specific sources to improve your life, because you can lose it all in essentially a vacuum of all this information just seeping into your mind and making it mush, because
Sure.
the information is the medium of control.
Yeah, what you put your attention to is going to affect how you are thinking about the world, and it's going to shape your perspective nonetheless. And I feel like a lot of people are just actively choosing to put trash in their minds, and then they are surprised that the quality of their life also represents that. Not to be beefing with anyone, but I think we all should be proactive in the way of choosing how we are spending our time and what content we are consuming. Novel is he's a very woke guy. I think in this digital era, we need people like him to, I think, shed some light on these aspects, because he's like an angel investor, like helping startups, and he also has his own podcast. He's a really interesting entrepreneur. I think we as young aspiring entrepreneurs, we are really blessed to be able to learn from these people like him and Alex Hormozy, for example. So yeah, it's very, very agree with you. People should choose what they put in their minds, because if they don't, they will be lost in all that information. And they should also, at least that's what I feel like. For example, I don't even look at my phone in the first 2 hours of my day. Or maybe I will look at my phone to put a podcast on from someone or an audiobook, right? But I feel like you can choose how you spend your time, and you should implement like downtimes when you are not consuming information. You are just allowing your mind to process all the things that we are being bombarded with, because there's so much, really, literally so many things going on. As you said, there's so much content being produced that we can lose a lot of mental space if we are always plugged in.
Yeah, absolutely. Essentially, space is an interesting topic, right? Spaciousness in your brain. We talk maybe sometimes about mindfulness, but what does that mean? Mindful about what? Like, what are we looking for, essentially? In my personal experience, I found it to be that we're looking for spaciousness, like to increase the space of our mind, the room inside of our mind, to make that space bigger so that we can have a sort of more calm, kind of peaceful existence where we can choose to entertain ideas, but we don't have to. Or we can be in the moment, or we can play with thoughts, but not the other way around, where the thoughts always are controlling the who we're being, and the
Mm.
thoughts and the emotions are controlling our actions. And a lot of people get caught up in oh, I have these emotions and that's why I can't do things. Really, it's because you identify yourself with these thoughts and emotions as opposed to separating yourself. And so this goes with the information too, is you think you are what you consume, but maybe the medium of consumption is just a way of trying to understand yourself.
With that, I definitely agree. The not identifying with your thoughts and certain emotions, because I think that often they can lead you down a bad way, like a bad path that you could avoid if you just learn to not listen to your mind all the time. Because we have all these cognitive biases, we have all these projections, and we are not even aware of it most of the time. And I'm also guilty of this. And with this spaciousness, you actually sparked an idea like that. Made me remember David Goggins' new book. I don't know if you read it. It's quite a good one. And he talks about this cleaning out the garage of your mind. It goes back to all this information that we're consuming because it's so overflooded that there's no room for anything else. There's no order in it. There's just chaos. And if it can be through practicing mindfulness or doing a workout or literally just going into nature and taking a walk for a couple hours. We can make space in our brains basically, and then we can also choose, okay, this maybe doesn't serve us anymore, and we can throw this out, and we can actively put in new interests, new hobbies, because I feel like there's so often people want to do certain things. For example, I procrastinated playing the piano for I think at least 1.5 years. And then now I'm playing it for five years, and it influenced everything that I am because I had this daily practice and I was pretty consistent with that. I'm really like grateful for it, for myself, for being consistent with it throughout all these years. And I feel like we should actively look at the space within our mind to see, okay, maybe we don't need these three surfboards anymore. Maybe we can use it to put on some paintings or something like that, just to get a refreshing there, get some fresh air in there.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, first, there's an underlying problem with clearing out what is in your mind, right? First, it assumes you have some level of distinction between who you are and what you've consumed in your lifetime. And then it then assumes that you can actively disassociate yourself from the past to create a new present. Or in other words, like in the words of Joe Dispenza, to believe in the future more than you believe in the past. And the future is the unknown, right? It's the possibility of existence. But when you're consistently acknowledging the past as if, oh, I'm this person, right? Or acknowledging your narrative that you tell yourself, I'm this person, I was born on this date, I do these things, I like these things, I am this way. And you consistently have that story about yourself. Change is impossible because you're not changing the narrative.
Yeah.
So to clear out space in your brain without changing the narrative is futile, or I would say even impossible.
I think that's what it means a little bit, right? Like changing the narrative is creating space between all the thoughts that you have constantly in your mind, this mental chatter.
Mm,
And you realize that, oh, okay, this is not true anymore. Maybe I'm not like that anymore. And then you can make change.
yeah,
And yeah, it's difficult for sure. I think change is the most difficult thing it's naturally happening all the time, of course, but to change a deeply rooted narrative that you are holding about yourself, it's very difficult. And most people, I would say at least I was like this for years, right? I didn't change my ways until I hit rock bottom and I was like forced to do something else because I couldn't exist in that narrative anymore. And it's difficult, but I feel like if you start with small steps, then it's possible. You can change your narrative and therefore you can change your perception and then you can change your environment in your life.
I
That's
like
what
what you
I
said
believe.
there. I like that you said you can change your narrative, you could change your perception, and then you can change your environment. What's the link between, in your opinion, changing your perception of the world to actually change the world?
There's this quote that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I feel like we all have this ability to influence our perception around certain things. And those perceptions will shape how we act. And through our actions, we can affect change. But I think at first one should focus on changing themselves and not just go about the world. Because I think there's so many people right now, like just bashing out ideologies like, oh, world should be like this and life should be like this. And to come with the words of Jordan Peterson, the room is still not clean. So they didn't change themselves. They are just trapped in their own minds, their own narrative. What about you? What do you think about this question?
I think that as you change yourself, you change the world.
For
I
sure.
think
I
I
think for
think that
sure you change the world as you view it.
I actually think you change the physical world as well. I believe in the power of us as creators. What does it mean to be a creator? What does that mean?
What does it mean? What do you think?
What does it mean for you?
I Okay, to answer your question, I do agree that influencing yourself and changing, or I wouldn't even say changing, I would say completely getting to your authentic nature, which is what Carl Jung calls individuation, realizing your full shadow is through that you will naturally change. And with that, you will, in effect, change your environment also, because you will not take certain actions that would come from an unconscious element in your psyche that you already dealt with, so it doesn't influence you anymore, right? And therefore you also change the collective unconscious, if one believes that there is such a thing, and I think there is, certainly. So you can change and then change the world also through changing yourself, but you can't change the world if you don't change yourself first. And I
Yeah.
think being a creator means that you are just, I think creativity and creation, for me at least, and I can't speak for every creative here, but it's just self-expression. You are transmuting a certain emotion into either a painting or music or even an individual piece of content or video, which is mainly my form of self-expression, though I do pedal with music a little bit nowadays. So I think creation is alchemy. Like you're transmuting something into a different thing. You are transmuting your inner being into an outer manifestation. And it can be just like, hey, I want more trees or I want a better world. So I just plant 1,000 trees and therefore I will have a forest in 20 years and that will make me really happy. And then you can actually create something, or at least be an active component in that creation. How would you answer that question?
I think you said of a lot that we need to unpack. One of the things you said is it's a form of self-expression. And it leads me to another question is what is self, right? Where does this self come from? And what are we expressing? Another thing you said, it's like you can turn what is within yourself into a physical manifestation. So I think creativity in its essence is to take something from nothing, to create something from nothing. And I think that self-expression you speak of is us reaching into the ether and tapping into source and then presenting it to the world.
Yeah, that's like flow. When you are in a really high level of flow, I do think that you are not creating from your ego state, or so to speak, like you are
Mm,
tapping into something larger than life, larger than you, larger than.
exactly.
But I think self is, it depends what's your perception, right? Like you can, some people have the self that their nation is their self. And of course they are also individuals in that, but they are very nationalistic or very collectivistic. And some people, they just think the self is their mind and their thoughts. And some people have, maybe they really identify with their bodies. I think it's different for everyone. It's
Yeah.
indescribable.
And I think it's meant to be that way. I think the point of this existence is perspective, because that's all there is. There's only different perspectives. There's all these flavors, and every flavor is a perspective. Every human being, every kind of life form, even if you're not alive. I don't even know what that means, though. What does it mean to not be alive when everything is? It's substance. And I think the base component of that substance is consciousness. So everything is alive. It just doesn't speak or talk like a rock, but it is alive. And that's one of the things I didn't understand for a long time is, what does my grandma mean by the rocks are alive? And I thought she was crazy until I started to eventually change my narrative, or change the accepted narratives that I held, that were told to me by, for example, the education system, where it says that everything's dead unless it's alive, and everything's an atom or made of atoms and such. And we get this mechanistic physical view of the universe, whereas if you can't touch it, it doesn't exist. And if you can touch it, that's all that exists.
Yeah, that's funny. And we know from quantum physics that even if you touch something, 99% of it doesn't exist, because there's more emptiness in every form, every matter, than there is form.
Yeah. Apparently, you can condense the entire universe into the space of a sugar cube if you took out the empty space.
It's so funny to think about, man. It's like we are so small. And at the same time, we are active creators of, I feel like we are active creators of life itself, existence itself.
Yeah. Me too.
Mm.
And I
Well,
definitely,
this conversation took a really deep turn in the first 10 minutes. I like it. I like it.
yeah, certainly we are creators. And for me, to answer that question, to backpedal a bit, I think creativity is literally our likeness to God. I think when they said you're created in God's image, it meant in every way. You also have the power to create, the ability to create universes, to create movements, to create music that moves people, to create art that makes people feel something, or to create what people don't view as art, but some do. For some, a car is just a car, but for the creator of that car, it's a work of art and a work of love. For some, roads seem like these sorts of things that no one even made them, because that's how good they're designed. They design it so good, they seem like they couldn't be made any other way.
Yeah.
It's an
I,
ubiquitous kind of design.
I feel like that's what your grandmother meant when she said that that the rock is alive, that the God exists in everything.
Mhm.
And like frankly, I don't believe in the Christian sense of God. I feel like I'm more of the spiritual view of like consciousness, what you said, that everything is consciousness. And you said also that you can create worlds, and that might sound really out of the, like, just way far out for some people. But if you learn to, like, for example, I do lucid dreaming, and if you learn to cultivate an awareness in the dream state, then you can witness this power of your mind to literally create dimensions and universes that maybe they exist and you just like tap into their location, or maybe you are just creating them within your mind. But there's definitely a creative potential in all of us, I feel like. And for me, at least, the more I tap into this, the more aligned I feel to my being.
Yeah. Have you seen the Spider-Man Into the Multiverse?
Yeah, yeah, it's an amazing one.
Like the comic kind of.
Yeah. The sunflower. The track is the sunflower from Post Malone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great one. Why do you bring that up?
Because that's what I mean by you create worlds. You don't create them so much as you attune to them. Well, in the leading edge of science currently today, we have a few discoveries which are not going to be reported because they're frankly terrifying and liberating at the same time, as with any good discovery. But the major things, and I'll summarize them, and there's a lot to unpack, but one of them is the non-locality of like space, which means that space is not real. What we witness is not even, it doesn't exist until we witness it. So the space behind me doesn't exist until I turn around and look at it. And that's one of the findings of quantum physics.
Exactly. That's like superposition, I think, or I'm at the wrong term. I'm using the wrong term. But yeah, okay, go on.
Yeah. And the other thing is that the leading thought is that there's a series of multiverses in which everything already exists. The infinite variations of the universe, where in one universe, let's just say, to make it very simple, I have blonde hair, right? That variation is not so difficult to ascertain, as I can dye my hair and now I'm in the universe where my hair is blonde. But maybe there's a universe where everything's 2 dimensions. And now that's even harder to conceptualize since we're 3-dimensional beings. But there's like all these variations where I don't even exist, and variations where at this very age, I have 100 billion net worth and I'm the ruler of planet Earth, right?
Yeah,
All these-
everything,
Yeah,
every
it all exists.
possibility.
And so what I'm getting at is when we create, we step into this multiverse kind of concept and we're just traipsing through multiverses. But you didn't really create that world as much as you stepped into it.
That makes me remind of reality transurfing, stepping into that reality. And also, so I've written some notes on this, what you said, like, first, like this idea of multiverses, if some people think it's far out, some people from the audience think it's far out, like some of the most esteemed scientists are saying that, for example, Neil deGrasse Tyson actively talks about this, that mathematically, that it is the case that there's multiverses. They just can't prove it. They just can't go into these like wormholes into a different dimension. But when it comes to mathematics, then there is a multiverse and everything exists at the same time, which is, I think it's wild to think about that the biggest scientists, the biggest minds of the planet are talking about this. Hey guys, by the way, there's multiverses. It's not that far out. And the other thing that you said, that real science is so far out, so groundbreaking that it will be kept a secret because most people can't really handle it. And of course, most people will never have access to these things, I think, that are going under the like the biggest government's secret stuff. For example, the thing that came into my mind is the CIA's, I don't know if you know this, the Astral Gate. I don't exactly know what the project's name is. Stargate project, right? Something like this. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it Stargate or Gateway?
Yes, I think Stargate. But maybe Gateway is Hemisync, is the Monroe Institute. But I think that they are both interlinked because, so for the people who don't know what this is, there was an institute called the Monroe Institute, and they linked up with the CIA, and they actively studied astral travel, which is basically your ability to step out of your body, and remote viewing. This is what they were interested in, remote viewing. So they can spy. This was during the Cold War. They can spy on the Russian people. And there's literally, this is official documents, and you can believe them, you cannot believe them. I actually believe them. I will tell you why. But there's documents of reports where, let's say, a CIA spy stepped out of their body and located an aircraft that was shot down by the Russians, but it was so important that they don't find this aircraft that they shut down, because then they can extract the information and extract the technology. So this person went into this astral state, stepped out of their body and located the aircraft, said, okay, this is here. And then the CIA went there and it was actually there and they just picked it up. And there's other instances where there was 2 rooms. One room is like here and the other is 50 meters away from the other room. And in this room, there's an agent who is trained to step out of their body and do this remote viewing. And on the other 50 meters away in the other room, there's a table. And on the table, there's a paper downwards. So it's written under the paper, so you can't see it from above. There's a number, there's a code. And this person, without previously having any knowledge of this code, stepped out of their body to their own like saying they didn't see that the spirit left the body, but the person said that, oh, that's what I did. And she knew this fucking 10-word code or 10 letter, 10 number code that was written on the paper 50 meters away. So how do you do that? And this is insane, I think. And this study was also kept secret. And yeah, I think this is fascinating.
Yeah. I think that's also a lot to unpack. If the viewers go back into this podcast, they will find already a few rabbit holes that are very deep. But let's just continue. And I think one of those things, it refers to the following. You didn't refer to this. I'm going to refer to this just because I feel like it's important. We've been convinced, the majority of humanity has been convinced that we are human beings that are having a physical experience, as opposed to spiritual beings that are having a human experience. And that distinction is important because if we don't believe that we are spiritual beings, we believe we're mechanistic beings and everything works like a billiards table where you just smack balls around and that's how life works. Cause and effect, cause and effect. And of course, there's cause and effect, but it doesn't just happen on the physical plane. It happens first in the mental plane because anything around you was first idealized as a mental concept. And even this microphone, we both have microphones here. How did this come into existence? Someone conceptualized, or a group of engineers conceptualized this thing together to build what is now these microphones, which we're using. And it's the same thing with anything on the planet. We've mined and extracted and taken the natural resources of the planet to build this mic. This has plastic, it has petroleum, it has metal, it has paint, it has all sorts of minerals that come from planet Earth. And this is planet Earth, shaped by man. And now it's this thing we call a mic.
It's like creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild to think about that. And I think that sheds a light on how, first of all, we are all creators and we have the capacity to think about something that doesn't exist yet and just put it into existence. And to go back to your saying that people view it as mechanistic, I think that's partially also why there's so much like cruelty and like complete unawareness of the other and just getting your own way, stepping over people because you are not, you think that, oh, this is just mechanistic. There's nothing besides this. So of course I will, I don't know, hurt other people to get my way. Right. And I feel like the more people realize, the more people awaken to this idea that we are all interlinked beings. We are all psycho-biosocial beings and we are connected through a web that you can call the collective or you can call whatever. You realize that, oh, okay, I actually should be actively not hurting people because it's also hurting me, myself. That also comes back to this idea, what is your perspective? Yeah, that just popped into my head.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been in the spiritual texts, like in the scriptures of all the religions forever, right? Christianity, Muslims, or rather Islam, right? Christianity, Islam, and the other religions. There's a lot. But
Yeah, there's a lot.
yeah,
But they all talk about this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they all talk about the same thing. And I think they're all aiming at the same thing. If it's not God, it's divinity. If it's not that, it's the universe or the all, right? We're referring to everything. And what you do to others, you do to yourself, like you said. And I think we're awakening. So what does that mean to you, though? That the planet is awakening, consciousness is rising.
I think for one thing, more people realize this that we talked about, that we are not like human beings having an experience, but we are, I don't know how you said it, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I think that's one thing. And I think that just if you think about, for example, these people, for example, Andrew Huberman and Sadhguru, they are very different people representing different ways of relating to existence. But I think they are both serving the purpose of making people more vacant in a way that Like, for example, if you listen to Huberman talk about cold showers and meditation and all this, you can see that he has a really scientific point of view. And I think we need that. And if you look at this Sadhguru or another like Eastern mystic, they have a really purely spiritual view. And I think that at one point these two will merge, and then real like substantial not work, but change can happen. But I think for that we need both perspectives. And for me, this idea of awakening just means that you are more conscious, you are more aware of existence, of reality, of truth, even though we don't necessarily know what is that. And I think that's also one step. You don't know. You really don't know what is going on. So don't label everything and don't listen too much to the chatter in your mind, because, yeah, just leave a little. I don't know. I feel like it's a tough question to answer, but I think the more people talk about these things, like one thing that you can witness is how these ideas of mindfulness, meditation, mental health, these are gaining a lot of attention and a lot of widespreadness. And I think that correlates also to the awakening of the species. And I think people like Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, Huberman Sadhguru, these people are really at the edge of pushing humanity in a good direction. That's what I feel like. And yeah, what about you? What do you think about this? What does that mean to you?
I think one of the things you mentioned about it was when you said live a little, right before that.
Don't label things?
Right. Ah, yes, you don't know, right? One of the things I live by is you don't know what you don't know. That means that as you learn and learn, but as you learn, there's a Dunning-Kruger effect. For example, when you start something new, you start learning a little bit, and then you think, wow, I know everything. I'm quite good, actually. I'm good at this thing. And then you start learning more. And that's when your ability to gauge how good you are starts to increase, but also your feeling of how good you are decreases. So you just think, wow, actually, I don't know anything. Oh, I'm actually very shit, because look at all these things I didn't know. So now you know what you don't know. But at the very least, there's still this upwards curve of, okay, now we're getting better. We're actually getting mastery. Most typically, people don't get to mastery. They just get to, I'm very good, because they know so little. But it's the same thing in every area of life. The amount of information that is out there, I could never know.
Never.
But
And you don't need to, I feel like.
you don't need to, but at the same time, when you're passionate about some things, you must be willing to go down that infinite rabbit hole of figuring out what it is that you do want to know and start traipsing in that direction. And I think that's why our intuition serves us. And our intuition is another word for God. It's just God speaking through us and guiding us to where we have to go so that we can do our part in this universe. So I think when people realize that we're ascending, or there's more spiritual like awareness, there's also equal descension. Everything is opposites. So as things get better, things also get worse. And they balance each other out. So it's okay. And in any case, it's just going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting how this planet turns out, and what
For
my
sure,
role
man.
is going to be, and what our role is going to be, and how everyone partakes in that. And basically this spinning spaceship. It's going to be interesting.
That's 100%. I'm really excited actually for the future. I'm gonna write also this down because I think we can talk about that a lot. But I have three takes, three words that I wrote down. Like, one is mastery. You were talking about this idea of mastery, and the Dunning-Kruger effect is really real. I feel like a lot of people think that when they look at a musician or a painter, they can come from this idea that, that's easy, that it looks so easy, because they make it look easy, because they are already at this level of mastery. But to get there, you definitely need to put in your years, man. And I feel like also this idea of mastery is what we are really actually put here for, to follow our curiosities and our intuition towards mastery. And I think that you need a lot of courage to do that, because it will be hard. It will be very grueling, sometimes boring. Like the pianist who is spending 4 hours a day practicing scales, chords, arpeggios, strides, whatever, rhythm. It might be boring, but they know that if they continue, they will reach this state where life just becomes play, or playing the piano just truly becomes play. That's what Charlie Parker, maybe I'm saying his name right. He's a really famous jazz, I think, trombonist. Anyways, what he said is learn your scales, learn your arpeggios, then forget all that shit and play. And
Mm.
that's mastery. That's when you reach that state. And I think that every human endeavor has this mastery in it. You can be a really good graphic designer, or you can be a master graphic designer. And this goes with everything. And there's a really good book, I'm not sure if you read it, from Robert Greene, called Mastery. This is the name. Did you read this book?
No.
Okay, then I suggest you. I know you are reading a lot, you're growing your mind. This one is a really good one. It really shaped how I look at my struggles in terms of being in the gym or practicing my instrument, even though I'm not doing 4 hours or whatever I want to do. I understand this idea of there's going to be a learning curve that you have to go through in order to reach to a state where you can actually create something that has substance, that has a meaning to it.
Mhm.
And you also said intuition. We should follow our intuition. There's God speaking to us and guiding us. It's like an inner compass that we all have.
Mhm.
And I think that it's also challenging to follow it, because sometimes you might not want to do the things that you might know you should be doing. Like maybe you don't want to face the reality that you will have to lose some friends, you will have to lose some free time because you will put it into your craft. And of course it will pay off, but it will also be full of suffering and full of hardships and struggle. And you don't know that it's worth it in the end. Like a musician who is practicing all day and just this is all that they live and breathe might not make it and might have to work at a 9 to 5 forever and might not do any successful endeavors in terms of music. But I feel like even though they will not reach materialistic success if they don't, I feel like they will be more happy than if they will choose a different path for themselves, which is full of like ease and I don't know, like money, whatever. I feel like you need to sacrifice sometimes to listen to your intuition and actively follow it. It takes a lot
Yeah.
of courage.
There's a lot of frames there that I want to unpack as well.
Yeah.
One of them you said that if you become a master, of course it will pay off. And then a few sentences down, you said, but it might not. And I think what pay off means is different for everyone. Success is different for everyone. Maybe it's not materialistic. For a lot of artists, and I'm barely noticing this because I've been fooled by the system as well, success is not the material.
Yeah. It shouldn't be.
I will say this on this podcast because I think it's going to be interesting to look back a few years on my first podcast, which is my first podcast, by the way. So thank you for inviting me.
Wow. It's a pleasure, bro. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But okay, this is how I view it. And it's taken a long time to come this way because society is not built this way. Okay, I'll have the Porsche. I'll have the nice villa. I'll have a G-Wagon. I'll have this. I'll have that. Have some watches. But what's next, right? Okay, you got the stuff. Now, what was the point? I think the point was just to feel good the whole time. But if you can feel good now, didn't you already accomplish it? Well, here's the thing, right? This material success will provide you easier access to feeling good. Like when you are driving a G-Wagon as opposed to driving a shitty car, right? Which maybe you had to sleep in because at some point you were homeless. and you didn't have a place to rest. It's nicer. It's way nicer, right? So it's going to be easier to feel happy. But in any case, if you can feel happy now, you will attract to you the desires and experiences that you want in life because you're already there. You've made it. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. That's like taking joy from creation itself, or the practice itself,
Yeah,
the
the journey.
art itself, the journey. Yeah. And that I want to quote Alan Watts, because he talks about this a lot. He talked about this a lot, that he gave this question to people that he was giving lectures to, that what would you do if money
Mhm.
was not an issue, money was not a factor? And I feel like we all should be choosing that. And
Mhm.
then money might follow or might not. But I feel like the universe or God or consciousness has our backs when we are brave enough to pursue our intuition and our curiosity
Mhm.
and mastery.
Yes.
And also there was this, you said, being present with in the creation itself and the journey. And there's a Hungarian and American psychotherapist guy called Andrew Feldmar. And I'm listening to him nowadays quite a lot. I just found a really amazing 100 episodes podcast from him. And in one of this, he talked about that time is like a phonogram that goes and spins, and there's music playing, and there's a symphony. And the only place you can exist is the needle.
Mhm.
And you shouldn't be influenced by the past and the
Yeah.
future. If you're enjoying the symphony in the present moment, and I think he put it in terms of like that. Sure, it's going to be over at one point, but now you're enjoying it, and the symphony is amazing. It's great. You're creating. So does it matter if at one point the vinyl is going to be over? I don't think so. I think the more we are living in the present moment, the more fulfillment we can get. And yeah,
Yeah. Even that's questionable. Does it end? I don't know. Let's find out.
question. Yeah, we don't know.
We'll
You
find
don't
out.
know.
Right?
Yeah.
So even that is, it might end, it might not. Why care? Right? No, I'm saying, on the other hand, there's also, you should have an urgency to life, which I sometimes struggle with. But I don't know if it's a struggle as much as I'm just conditioned to believe that you have to do things to get things and get things done and such. But on the other hand, what you were saying about the symphony, I love that because think of the term universe. Uni meaning one, verse meaning perhaps song. That's the way I see it. One song. So all this chaos is just one song. And it's this symphony. And this can go deeper into the fact that everything's vibration, that
Yeah.
we're all just energy vibrating at different frequencies, and that everything is sound. Even the
Yeah.
table is sound.
Yeah. I feel Alan once said the same. All this jazz to life, and sound is form. It is
Yeah.
electromagnetic waves that you are sending out using your diaphragm. And sound and words, I think they are magic, because you can literally shape somebody else's state of mind through your words. Like, for example, when you're listening to a song that really hits a chord and you are feeling inspired or motivated or sad or understood, I feel like that's magic. And yeah, I I don't know. I'm just really interested in these words because I study a lot of like NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and since I also study psychology, I'm really interested in how you can help someone through a difficult time, or also yourself, right? What is your self talk? The words that you are choosing in your mind will influence your perception. So one should be also attentive, at least attentive to, even if you are not trying to change anything, because I feel like that's also a way. Like meditation is just observation of the present. And then through that, you will enter the state where there's no thought. But being attentive to what's going on within, I feel like that's the first step also to changing the narrative. It
Mhm.
goes back to the first thing, or one of the first things that we discussed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you want to comment on this? No. Did you hear what I said? That's your comment. All right. Also, one thing you said that
I didn't hear what he said, by the way.
oh, you didn't hear? I just asked, do you want to comment on that?
Who?
Did you hear me now?
I hear you, but I don't hear anyone else.
What do you mean?
Are you asking me if I want to comment on that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because you're looking somewhere else, so I thought there was someone
Oh
else.
yeah, sorry. There's the camera, like the laptop. The editor, please cut this. Or if you don't, that's also fine. But yeah, I'm looking at you there that way.
Oh, I was just staring blankly because I'm waiting for a response
Okay.
from the other person. Okay, interesting. So, what's my comment? I forgot, to be honest.
That's all right, bro. We can just continue. You were saying one thing like I think 10 minutes ago, but I've written it down that the more you elevate, the more you will also descend because this is a force like cause and effect and like opposite, like yin and yang, right? The more you lift yourself up, the more aware you have to be of the darkness within you. And this is what Carl Jung also talked about a lot. And I think Nietzsche also, like a tree can only grow as far as high as the roots descend into the depth. And I feel like this is a multi-angle like argument that I want to make, not argument, I don't know what's the correct word, philosophical question or philosophizing, that the more whole and let's say fulfilled you want to be or happy, even though happiness I think is a bit overrated, the more aware you have to be of the not necessarily limitations, but your traumas. For example, the more you uncover your grief, your anger, your sadness, I feel like the more you can open yourself up to these this force, this universal force called love. And that's also very difficult, I feel like, because you can't just climb the ladder and just build your house high and high. You have to dig the foundation first. You have to go and listen to those dark emotions and depths and thoughts that you have within before you can make the change or before you can reach for the sky, to use a metaphor.
Yeah,
And you were also talking about the future. It's really exciting, I feel like, with Neuralink. Do you know this? What do you think about that?
I don't think it's a net positive for society.
Okay. Why do you make that? Why do you think so?
Just intuition. I don't really have any facts to back that up, but sounds a lot like the Matrix, like the actual Matrix movie, getting plugged in.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I think the Matrix is prophetic, and it's not a movie. It's about real life. Here's the thing about movies, by the way, listeners, audience. All the movies are predictive programming, and they
What do you mean by that?
essentially they tell you what's going to happen before it happens. The conglomerates that own the planet, that own the media companies, that basically own real estate in your brain to tell you how the universe is going to pan out and what's coming and what this is all about and what's going to happen. Yeah, it's in the movies, it's in the media. And in the movies, for example, The Matrix, that's not so much a movie as it is a depiction of real life. And there's other movies like that too. The Truman Show. Yeah. And just to say, I don't feel that Neuralink is going to be a net positive for society is based on intuition. And I guess how much I believe in the want for control from the people who have it.
Yeah, gotcha. No, I totally understand that he can definitely have two sides, just like with AI. I feel it's a really good thing, but also it can be really dangerous. And I feel like Neuralink has its applications. For example, for people who are paralyzed, if they can get it to the level where people can get back the control of over their spine and their movements and all that, and so their quality of life gets better, and they can stop Alzheimer's and they can stop like disorders of the brain with like speech or understanding or Huntington. If they can cure certain neural diseases with it, I feel like it's going to be amazing and it's really beneficial. But if they
Mhm.
want to use it so that they can track you and all this negative aspect, which is also there, I feel like, then it's of course it's bad. And I personally, I would never install anything like that to my brain. That's
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the barometer by I think we should all judge technology. And maybe not because some people don't care anyways, but would you give it to your children? I would not give my children an iPad or a phone. And that's why I said depending on how you value certain things, because some people definitely give their kids, their 3-year-old kid, a phone because they don't want to be parents. They just want to, and I say this as not being a parent yet. I want 9 kids, but people,
9.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Your
yeah.
girl will have to do a lot of things that
I get that same response all the time, but they always like, "Oh, just have one and then you'll see." And I was like,
Oh,
"Okay."
fuck that.
Y
You can have 9. Why not have 2 basketball teams or
Yeah,
one and a half?
exactly. But yeah, that's just a tangent. I think certainly solving stuff is cool, but like you're not solving the underlying issues. Alzheimer's is a lifestyle disease,
That's true.
right?
Very true.
All of these things are lifestyle unless you got hit by a car and
Yeah.
now you're paralyzed, right?
Yeah.
But so now we have this technology that we're going to implant into our brains because it'll cure these things, which in the first place they caused through their lack of sincerity in telling us what's good for our health. They were like,
Yeah.
do these things and blah 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 and drink Coke and eat cornflakes, and then don't expect to have Alzheimer's. Oh, and also do opium and prescription drugs because
Yeah, that's a big one. Holy shit. Big pharma. Wow.
oh, and get the injections so that you could be safe as well because we just want what's best for you.
I feel like with that one, it doesn't really do any harm. It's just the disease itself in a small dose, right? You can manage, and your immune system will be more equipped. That's what I understand from the science.
No, of
But
course.
you don't know. You don't know. Maybe it's bullshit. Maybe it's poison.
Just maybe.
I just don't know, so I don't speak on it.
No, I don't know either, but again, my intuition. And
Gotcha. Gotcha.
so my intuition tells me when the government wants the best for me, if it was truly the best for me, for example, in California, when you had to get a certain injection, they were offering $50, right? Like gift cards and such. And if it's so good for me and it's going to protect me from death, why do you have to offer me $50?
Exactly. That's such bullshit. Sorry, I'm just playing with my camera, by the way. But yeah, that's like Hungary buying the votes of like people living in deep poverty for a sack of potatoes. That's what the Hungarian government is doing, actually. Like it's bad.
Yeah. There you go. That's it. So when you tell me the government wants the best for me, I'm very doubtful.
Nah, they don't want the best for you, bro. That's for sure. I think that's elementary school 101. The government is not for you, at least in certain places. And I feel like if you were living in a world that is true to itself, like for example, democracy, it says that, okay, we are for the people and we want the best for the people, but actually they are not. So it's
Well,
a
it's because it's
tricky
not a
thing.
democracy. That's the thing.
That's
If
also
you
true.
tell the people they are free and they believe it when they're really enslaved, what's better than that? A slave that thinks it's free.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people who are, in fact, living that lifestyle, and and they think they are free, but they are just in the trap of this rat race and 9 to 5, and like consuming a lot of media and just listening to, oh yes, this is what they say, so it must be true, and I have to fear. For example, to relate to my country, Hungary, there's there's total, almost total control of the media by the government, and they can actively like push any form of ideology that they want to the people, and they are spreading so much hate and so much negativity that it's saddening actually. And I know it's not just Hungary, I feel like everywhere, because negative headlines, they get more attention. But yeah, it's definitely something that one should be aware of, that don't trust the media, don't
Yeah.
trust the government. It doesn't
Yeah.
want the best for you.
And I'll say this just to go off of this, but also give people something to think about. when we say that the media or the government doesn't care about you, we're saying it because they view us or human beings as human resources. If you're not part of the elite, you're a human resource, basically like a rock that can be interchanged in the system. And if this rock stops being useful, we'll just get another one. That's why we have the education systems if you're in a developed country. And if you're not, even more so, this applies. Because when you're in a system, it means you're a part of that thing, which means you're like a gear working. And all that to say that the majority of people, when they retire, rather when they die, have less than $1,000 in their bank account. And that's in the US. In many other places, it's worse.
Yeah.
So
But
you have,
I feel like that's also partially their fault. Just from, for example, even if you're living this 9 to 5 life, there's this really good story from this book, Psychology of Money. I don't know if you read it. It talks about how this guy who was a cleaner all his life at a gas station, all his life, right? His whole life. And when he died, he had $8 million in the bank account. And in that year, I think he was, from the people who died, he was in like the top, I don't know, 200 people of the most wealthy people who died. So what he did is just invest, and he was smart with his money, right? So I think everyone can do that.
no,
But most
yeah,
people, they don't necessarily have the awareness and the knowledge. And I feel like that's also, like, the government doesn't want you to know about these things. They don't want you to know, like, these. And I have to bring again up my country, because there's active suppression of the teachers by keeping them broke. So nobody wants to be a teacher. And then in a long run, like, it's a dying breed, teachers, pedagogy. And in the long run, the people will just become more dumb and numb, because there's nobody to educate them. Even though the education system itself is just horrible, but I feel like people should have the right to access this type of knowledge. And they
yes,
do, actually. They do, since, as I said at the beginning, you have your phone. But I guess it depends on what you were taught. If you were taught to just waste your money, then of course you will do that. And
yeah. No, but you are taught that. And that's why I mentioned it, right? Because it all comes down in the end of the day. At the end of the day, no matter what you think is out there that's stopping you, nothing's stopping you except yourself. It's all about full responsibility. That's it. Just taking full responsibility for everything that happens in your life.
Mm.
But when you have people like me or other people like you or anyone else telling you things, you got to know why they're telling you. I don't have anything to sell you. In this instance, I do sell things. I'm a businessman.
yeah,
But
same.
but in this instance, I thought it was important to share that because that is the rat race. That's the real game. The real game is to make people think they're free when in reality, they have to work. They have to wake up. They have to do the same thing over and over again so they can go back and do the same thing over and over again. It's just
Yeah,
an endless cycle of why am I here on this planet?
misery,
Life
just
of misery. It's not a life to be worth living. And you can only realize that once you've either been in it or see other people, but you need to have awareness. And awareness is the utmost and most important thing. Everything starts with awareness.
for sure. I think people should be aware, and people should actively create communities for themselves. For example, what we did, like how we met, we just met randomly on a train because you sat in front of me. And I was like, okay, this guy has a camera, so he might be making some content, or he's a creative guy. And I like to meet people who are like creators. And so we started to talk. And then it turns out we are also in the agency business and online space. And so it was a really good connection. And then we also met Ash, and we created this online community where it's all about like entrepreneurship and just helping each other grow a little bit. And now Josh and Ash, they are in the Philippines living this remote lifestyle and digital nomad style. And I feel like that we all have the power to create a tribe around us. And we should be actively seeking out the people that can make us the best version of ourselves, by also they themselves on this journey of creating their greatest potential, because I feel like you have to create that. And of course, it starts with acceptance, accepting you as yourself, as who you are, and then change can begin. But I feel like community aspect is really important. And when you're surrounded by this negativity and your friends are also subscribing to these same ideas, I don't blame anybody also believing in these things and be subscribing to this idea that you need the Gucci, you need the Prada, you need these consumeristic ideals in order to be happy. You really
Mm.
don't. But I understand why people would subscribe to an idea
Yeah,
like that.
that's it. I think all you need is love around you, right? If the people that are around you love life, way easier for you to love life.
Sure.
You are the kind of person that sees everything as a negative, you will attract more people like that, and thus it will become more difficult to see life in a beautiful way. Because the fact that you can wake up this morning and just still breathe, right? The sun shines on your face. The sun is free. Everyone can feel the sun, unless you have this condition where you can't feel the sun. But everyone, in vast majority, 99.999% of people, will always be caveats, right? There is no absolute truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist, but you can feel the sun and you can smell the air and you can probably go outside and find some part of nature and you can just thank the universe that you're alive for today.
I feel like gratitude is a good note to end the podcast on because actually my colleague was signaling me that our time is running out. But before we are jumping off, share a little bit about where people can find you, and also if you have any book recommendations. I always ask people, feel free to go into any tangent in that.
Okay, let's see. Book recommendations. Okay, it's not a book, but it's important. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention this. Essentially, you can search this up on YouTube. It's called Your Wish is Your Command. All right. This is the single most important piece of knowledge out there.
I feel like it's a little bit about also self beliefs and your
No.
beliefs. No?
Well, yes, it's about everything. It's essentially,
What did it give you? Why are you recommending this so much?
yeah, it's how you get what you want out of life. I've heard intelligence defined not as like how smart you are and this and that. I've heard intelligence defined as how able are you to get what you want out of life. If you come to this planet, you're born, you're a helpless little baby, but you evolve into the kind of human being, that can alter their reality as he sees fit. I think that's a worthwhile goal.
For sure. That is for sure. All right. Let's end on that note. Thank you for coming in, Axel. I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we will definitely do another episode also, maybe if you're also down for it, because I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you once again for coming in, and for the viewers. See you in the next one.
And people can find me at the
Yeah.
Axel Mora. Yeah, anywhere.
The Axel Mora. I will link it on the Instagram. He's a graphic designer. If you have a brand you want to represent, I wouldn't say you're just a graphic designer. I would say you're like a brand strategist, something like that, right?
I help companies bring visions to life.
All right. Thanks again, bro.
All
Good
right,
to see
thank
you.
you.